Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be breaking down a Gunna beat for y'all, of course in the style of his newest album, A Gift and a Curse. And before we get into this video, of course, make sure to like, comment and subscribe to keep up with all these giveaways that I'm going to be doing very soon, as we have just hit 1,000 subs, so thank you to all of you. And now let's just get into the video. Yo guys, sorry to interrupt the video, but we got a quick little word from one of our sponsors, and that is yours truly. So without further ado, let me just roll you the trailer. So there you have it guys, new kid coming soon. To keep up with it, make sure to sub on the YouTube, follow my IG, link in the description, and of course, enjoy the video. So first thing to note about this beat, we are starting off the whole sample in a scale of C sharp. That does change later on. And of course, we're doing this at a BPM of 120, which is something that Gunna is very comfortable in, that 120 to 130 BPM. And for the first sound, of course, this isn't a Gunna beat if we ain't using a guitar. So in Omnisphere, I grabbed myself a preset called the Flamenco Guitar A, part of the guitar's bank. And as we can see from the pattern, it's essentially a 4-bar that just repeats over, creating a full 8. And looking at the 4-bar, as we can see, first I begin with a minor chord, of course in the C sharp, taking it down to a major chord with the root note of A, and of course going all the way down into a minor chord again with the root note of G sharp. And this kind of chord progression, guys, this simple one that starts off with a 1, going down to the 4 and the 5, very common in Gunna beats, very much used a lot. And of course, when looking at the strumming right here, very simple, and it really works always. Just taking these notes 2 back, taking these notes 1 back, and of course keeping these the same. And for that variation, because you know, God give it a bit of spice, instead of having this F sharp, instead of having this D sharp down here, taking it 1, 2, 3 up to the F sharp, giving it that variety that we're looking for. And last but not least, I click Alt R and I use the velocity wheel to randomize my velocity. The reason I do this is just to give it more of a human touch to the whole sound. But without further ado, this is what the guitar sounds like. And there we have it. As for effects, the first thing I did was get myself an instance of RC20 using the Vinyl 1 preset and just adjusting the noise a bit. Then I got myself an EQ just to cut off all the lows. And then on top of that, some Valhalla vintage verb, you know, just to add some ambience to the sound. And then last but not least, I stereo separated this melody by 20% just to widen it a bit in the mix. And next up, I got myself an instance of Omnisphere, yes again, using the exact same preset. But the whole purpose of this pattern is just to be the counter melody that cooperates alongside the main chords. And as we can see from the pattern, it's a very nice pattern and it repeats itself over from a 4-bar to the 8, but there's a bit of variation, as you can see here, between the G sharp and the F sharp. And to break it down, as we can see for this nice little roll I've got going, I go into my magnet tool, go into a third step, and I kind of just draw these in. Then what I do is I click Control and I highlight with the left click, go down to my velocity, I right click the final note, and as you can see, I create this nice little cascading pattern, giving it a much more human tone. Then of course, just play around with the notes, giving it a nice little cascading pattern yet again, and then I build it all the way back up yet again, copy and paste it over, copy and paste it over again, but of course the G sharp has now gone down 2 semitones to the F sharp. And last but not least, click Alt R, randomize my velocities, making it sound more human, and now this is what the counter melody sounds like. And there we have it. As for the effects, I pretty much just copy and pasted the same effects as I used for the main chord progression. However, the only difference really is I stereo separated the counter melody 40% rather than 20. Next up, I'm using a bank from Contact 7 called the Scarby Rickenback bass. Forgive my pronunciation. And of course, this is a phenomenal bass using a lot of Gunna beats. And if you really want to use a different bass because you don't have access to such VSTs, I highly recommend using Expand 2 because it's really good. And looking at the bass pattern, it's essentially the chord's root notes. However, it just repeats itself throughout the whole thing. So without further ado, this is what the bass sounds like alongside the guitar. And there we have it. And as for the bass, I put no effects just because the sound itself really is crisp alone. And now, last but not least, for the melodic component, I've got myself Contact 7 open yet again. However, I'm using a new bank called the Vocalize 3 pack. And as we can see here, I've got myself these nice little vocals I've got playing at each interval, coming in and out, just to add that variation, because we all know in these kind of beats, you gotta have vocals alongside your guitar. And as for the effects, all I did was whack an EQ calling off all the lows, a bit of shaper box to add some movement to the whole melody, and then a heavy amount of reverb as we can see from the preset I've made. So I separated this to the max just to really widen the sound and the voice. And then last but not least, I rendered out the whole melody and took it up 3 semitones, taking it from a C sharp minor up to an E minor. And without further ado, this is what the full sample for Gunna's new album sounds like. And now, of course, it's time to move on to the drum pattern. But first off, let's begin with the clap pattern. As we can see, clap pattern is very simple and straightforward, so let's just move on to the hi-hats. So when looking at the hi-hat pattern, essentially just a 2-bar that repeats itself for a full 8, just giving me that nice simple bounce and repetition that we're looking for. So if we just analyze the first 2-bar in the open, so if we just analyze the first 2 bars in the hi-hat pattern, from what we can see, I start off with 1 note. Then I get myself a nice little roll going here. However, by doing so, I use the 1/3 step, of course. Then I place another note again. And then I just go off with a simple hi-hat roll, which you can do just by using the step tool, as you can see. And then all I actually did was just copy and paste it again, making it a full 4-bar. And then once again, to make it a full 8. So this is what the hi-hat sounds like alongside the clap. And there we have it. And next up we got ourselves the 808s and the kick pattern. But looking at the 808 pattern, it's a very simple pattern. Repeats itself every 4 bar as we can see. However, the only bit of variation comes in when we have it playing back to back at the start of the 5th. And one thing I want to really emphasize is max your velocities out. And the reason I say this is it makes your 808s and your kick hit much harder, and it appeals to the artist much more because the hip hop beat needs to have that bass hitting different. And the way I do this is I click Control A, highlighting all my notes, and then using the scroller wheel, I hold onto it, I click and I drag all the way up as you can see, maxing out the velocity for my 808s and my kicks. And as for the kick pattern, it's very simple, straightforward, following the 808 pattern itself. And then last but not least, I got myself a little rim shot, of course, from my up and coming kit. And I play it every single 2 bar, just giving it a bit more bounce, providing the beat with a nice little bit of rhythm. So without further ado, this is what a beat for Gunna's A Gift and a Curse sounds like. And there we have it, folks. But before I wrap this up, let me walk you all through the beat pattern. Looking at the highlighted part, I first begin with a nice little intro, of course having a hi-hat, my tag of course, and then just the main guitar with the bass alongside it. Then coming into the chorus, we have 2 8 bars making a total of 16. But looking at the first 8 bar, we have the basic fundamental drums playing just alongside the chords. But then for the second half, I reintroduce, the bass alongside the counter melody. And then underneath, I introduced a perk as well. And now moving on to the verse section, I use 3 8 bars making a total of 24. And looking here, for the first verse, start off with a nice little chord alongside, the snares and the drums and the hats. Then coming into the second part, I introduced the 808 now, using the counter melody alongside it. And then for the bridge section, which I also like to call the pre-hook because it's the 8 bar before, the chorus, we introduce the whole sample, introduce those beautiful vocals, have a clap come in halfway, and then I drop the chorus yet again, then I go into the verse once again, and then last but not least, I have the final chorus with a bit of variation, so you could pause and look at the whole structure just to see how I did it. And there we have it, folks, a full beat breakdown for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and to summarize it all, it was just 1 8 bar intro, 2 24 bar verses, 3 16 bar choruses, and that's all. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.